Well, folks, we appreciate you taking the time today, and this is Rick Moore, co-founder at BidPoint. And we've got a special guest here today, the CEO of Avion Energy and the person who is responsible, or who's the brainchild of the Direct Connect portal. And he's going to get into why that's important, why that's unique, and what makes all of this important to you. And so we're excited to have you on the phone here today. Jim, can you hear me loud and clear?
I hear you, Rick, yes.
All right. Well, I know we've been talking about the idea of Avion Energy and BidPoint for a long time, and it's finally come to fruition. We're about a month into it, and it's going great. And so, it's exciting what's happening, but what's really exciting is the fact that we'll be able to scale this up because of what you put together, both in terms of the supplier network and how we're able to communicate to them. Because I'm sure it doesn't do much good to have 70 some odd suppliers or whatever the number is, unless you had a way to communicate to them effectively. So what we could do for everybody that's on the phone here today is just once again introduce you to Jim, and we call Jim the Minister of Energy, all things energy that flow through Avion that make BidPoint possible are the responsibility one way or another of Avion CEO Jim Sharon. So Jim, I'm gonna pass the call to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick. I appreciate the invitation to come and talk to everybody today. I think probably the best way to introduce the whole idea of the Direct Connect portal is just to take a very brief moment to explain a little bit of our past. Because when we got started, Joe and I, my partner and co-founder, Joe Mitiga, we had a vision of creating not only becoming the largest energy brokerage in the U.S., but creating a company that it would just be a no-brainer for an energy consumer to want to outsource energy procurement to us. And with that in mind, we needed to be able to go out and do an exceptional job above and beyond what they would ever consider doing for energy procurement, go out and find the best price in the marketplace. And unfortunately, a lot of stuff doesn't happen that way. Typically, they're dealing with an energy supplier, so they got a salesperson pressuring them to hurry up, make a decision, come do business with them, or somebody who maybe represents one or two companies. But we wanted to be able to go out and find the best price. So we created relationships over the past 6 years with 72 different energy suppliers, and I have on my desk right now about 6 or 7 more that they're coming to us now. That wasn't the case in the early days. We got turned down multiple times by some of the larger energy suppliers. Currently, we have them all, and we created a system that is able to produce best pricing, which is very unique. I hope you guys understand that most consumers don't have the ability to do that. If you stop and think just for a moment, if you were given the job, your boss called you in and said, hey, our electricity contract's coming up for renewal. I need somebody to go out and, shop a little bit, make sure we're getting a good deal. And I want you to do that. Where would you go? What would you do? How would you start that process? And for most people, they'd probably, turn to the internet, might do a Google search or something like that. Once they found a few energy suppliers, they'd make a phone call, contact them. Now they're dealing with probably 3 salespeople, maybe at the most. I don't know where this idea of getting 3 prices and then you've done a good job when it relates to procurement of anything. But that's kind of the standard. And so, you're going to call 3 salespeople. They're going to come give you pricing. And if you don't know too much about the industry, you're liable to make mistakes. They're simple to do because in our industry, everything is based on a commodity. Electricity is the same for every single person that's connected to the grid. Every kilowatt hour of electricity that comes into their building, their home, wherever they're consuming it, it's all the same. Nobody opens a briefcase and says, hey, I want to sell you some special electricity that nobody else has. It's just a commodity. So it really comes down to price. And unfortunately, in the industry, we've seen the smoke and mirrors, I recall it, of the sales process from a lot of different companies that will try to make their price look lower by quoting a price, but then they bury some pass-through charges, deep in the contract on page 5. So what we wanted to do is to create an apple-to-apples comparison of all these energy suppliers, their prices. I put them on a single sheet of paper, their prices, their name prices, right alongside their competitors. The only hope they have of winning the business is to have the best price. So we create that competitive environment that'll produce that every time. But as we started doing this in the early stages, it's extremely time-consuming. If a consumer's doing it on their own, it's a huge job to give somebody to go get prices from 3. And we're talking about in a lot of the major markets of getting prices from 17 or 20 different energy suppliers. Huge job when you take into account that all those prices need to be gathered on the same day, because energy prices are only good for the day. Energy prices are driven by the commodities markets, which are volatile. Prices change every 15 minutes. So, if you get prices from multiple suppliers and you get them on multiple days, well, you're not comparing apples and apples. And so if you want to compare in an apple-to-apples format, all those prices have to come in on the exact same day. They have to be presented to the customer, and the customer has to make a decision, get contracts and sign them and get them back in, because the energy supplier needs enough time before the energy markets, the commodities markets close, to go out and buy enough energy that very day for the next 12 months. That's the only way they can lock in a price, the same price per kilowatt, if they're doing a fixed rate contract. I know I'm glossing over a whole bunch of details of things, but I'm trying to give you the short version of some things today and center it around the Direct Connect portal. So as we started this, it used to take us sometimes 4 or 5 hours to generate one request for pricing, get the pricing presentation, together and send it out to a client. To scale any business, if it takes you 4 or 5 hours to do something like that, you can obviously only service so many clients in any given day. You either have to have a massive staff of hundreds and hundreds of people to be able to get it all done, or you need to create some technology to be able to do some of the repetitive steps in an automated way to be able to speed things up. Now, what makes this even more challenging is that we currently are doing business in 75 electric utilities and 141 natural gas utilities. Every one of those utility companies have their own set of rules about how business is conducted in with them in that energy, utility space. On top of that, we have 23 different states that have public service commissions, public utility commissions. It's that governing body on a state level that's designed to protect the consumer that's interested in what's happening in the energy transactions. And so they have a bunch of set of rules. And if you're doing business in that state, some of them require licensing, most of them do. And you have to do business according to their rules, or else, of course, you get fined and things like that, restricted from being able to do business in those states. So all those things are very important. Then you also, in addition to that, you've got 72 different energy suppliers. They all have a different set of rules. So very quickly, you start doing the math. 175 or 75 and 141 utilities times the 23 states times the 72 suppliers. On any single request for pricing, you can have over 10,000 different options. And there's no way to do that in an efficient manner because we're receiving pricing requests from all over the country and all these different utilities on a daily basis. So we needed to have some automation to be able to do all of that and make sure that we're sending the request for pricing out to the energy suppliers who are licensed to do business in that specific utility and have targeted the type of client that we're representing to them. When we talk about these energy suppliers, the largest is Constellation. And even though they're the largest, they don't do business in all of those 23 different states or those all those different markets. So that's one of the reasons why we need 72, because we want to be able to do an exceptional job of energy procurement everywhere we do business, and so we need a whole lot of them. But typically, most states, it just depends on the size and type of a client. Sometimes a client that's got, maybe not so healthy credit rating, they don't pay their bills on time, it's a much greater credit risk to the company. So some of those companies choose not to do business with us. So if we get a client like that, we still can find competitive rates for them, but it may not be everybody bidding on that. So, it just depends on all those various scenarios that we had to build into our system. So the Direct Connect portal will do what used to take us, 3, 4, 5 hours to do, it'll do in 5 to 10 minutes. So doesn't require that we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees to get the job done. It just requires a system that has all of that built into it, which is quite technologically advanced to be able to do that. We've been working on that with an individual that's highly skilled and qualified, comes from the credit industry, who has all kinds of rules and regulations about how anything works when you're talking about programming. And so Brett does a phenomenal job for us. We're adding to that staff. We've got, right now on the drawing board, over 21 different things that we want our software development guys to build, which will even enhance what we do more, some other products and ideas that we have that will automate different parts of the energy industry. And so, over the next 2-3 years, we've got our plate full. Right now, our current version of the Direct Connect portal, which is patent pending, by the way, it's unique enough in what it does that required patent protection. We've submitted that patent application, it's been 7-8 months ago, and my understanding that it can take up to 2 years before the patent office finally gets to it and goes through their process to see if, in fact, it's different, unique enough to award it a patent. We believe that will be the case, and certainly when that happens, we'll make the big announcement to everybody that we do have a patent. In the meantime, it's designed to give sales agents some tools to easily, you go out in the field, you're gathering some documents, you're going to be able to submit them to us, and then a lot of what goes on with the Direct Connect portal happens at the corporate level, where our brokers obtain the documentation and do everything necessary to submit requests for pricing out to all the energy suppliers in a way and a format that requires them to give us an apples-to-apples comparison. And then the pricing presentation sheet, all the way through the contract process, there's multiple levels. And then, of course, the accounting process. Since we get paid, one of the nicest things that we love about this business is everybody uses energy, electricity. Most use natural gas. And so, it's a high-demand product. Everybody needs it or they go out of business. And so when we offer energy procurement services to them in a way that we do, our level of service is so high that once a customer uses us, they continue to use us over and over and over again. I've got some customers that have been with us since the very first few months, and every year when their contracts are coming up for renewal, they come back. As a matter of fact, we're the ones notifying them because all of that's built into the Direct Connect portal. We notify them that their contract is about to expire. We do that 90 days in advance of that contract expiring, and we go ahead and start the whole process all over again. And with that, we have a 91% retention rate, which is huge. It's off the chart, and for us as a company, that's good news. But Joe and I both come from sales positions in the field like you guys on the call. So, we see things from your perspective. We're not a couple of, corporate types that don't know what goes on out in the field, and we're making decisions based on, what we think is good for us at the detriment to all the sales guys. We know that the company exists because of the sales generated, and without the sales guys, the company wouldn't even be there. So that's the way we felt when we were in the field. That's the way we feel today. And so, we're doing everything to make this just a phenomenal opportunity for you to grow a long-term book of business. And the technologies that we've developed through the Direct Connect portal, allow us to do that. You can go out, you can grow teams as large as you want. You can't grow too fast. You won't get ahead of us. We're always developing additional staff members so that, we're anticipating a lot of growth over the next 3 to 5 years. And we're geared up and ready for all of that. So, Rick, I've taken, 15 minutes here to talk a lot about kind of a broad overview. If you have questions or you want me to drill down deeper on something, jump in here. It's important for us to answer the kinds of questions that people have so that instead of just, rambling on about whatever comes to mind.
Sure. I think that you described it well. And like I said, if you're trying to deal directly with, dozens and dozens of suppliers at the same time, all with different kinds of qualifiers on what kind of customers they want, having a manual process is a tedious process. And as you know, I've been in a few different companies where they were going through that tedious process, and a lot of times even got to the point where they were stopping the presses on new business until they caught up. So it's exciting to know that there's no limitations here, and really the Direct Connect portal is what makes things possible for anybody on this telephone to grow a team of significance. And I guess now that you guys have been up and running for 7 years and feel comfortable with expanding the sales force, what do you see the next 3 to 5 years looking like as we do this? I mean, give an idea and some projections and expectations of the company.
Yeah, it's a great question. Our first goal is to reach 5% market penetration, which is huge when you take into account, it's a $750 billion marketplace. And, we'll eventually do that without any hesitation, with any doubt in my mind. Every customer we've had right now, when 91% of them continue to come back, say, yeah, keep doing this for me. It doesn't make any sense for me to pay one of my employees to do a substandard job when you guys do this without charging me anything for finding best pricing. Works like a buyer's agent in a real estate contract. If you're representing the buyer, you go out, you're doing all kinds of activities, trying to find that right home for them, and you don't get paid anything. You can spend money driving around in your car and do all kinds of stuff. You don't get paid until you put a buyer and seller together in a mutually agreeable transaction. When that happens, it creates a broker fee. The broker fee is always paid by the seller, and our opportunity works the same way. There's not an additional cost associated with the client, utilizing our service. It creates a broker fee that is basically the same thing that they're going to be paying their sales agent. So it's a huge advantage for the client. They know and understand energy is a commodity, and they want to pay the best price available. We're the company that can find the best price for them. I think this is just aside a little bit. As a sales agent, that puts you in a great spot, because no longer do you have to go out and ask, business owners that it could be a family member that, your Uncle Joe owns a business, and you have to ask him a favor, to buy energy from you because you're starting up, this energy business of yours. You don't have to do that here. You can go out and tell them, look, what we do is we find best pricing for you. Just need to gather a little bit of documentation so that we can go out and represent you well, outsource your energy procurement to us, and we'll keep you in best pricing, on and on and on. Rick, I think, one of the things, just following up on that thought, is that it's kind of the dirty little secret in the industry. On average, a consumer will stay 7 years with an energy supplier. So the typical process is that an energy supplier offers this teaser rate, I like to call it. It's a low rate. It's a first-year contract to get somebody to switch from wherever they're at. Once they become a client, though, they unless if they're a real big client that's a target and a lot of other people would love to have them as a client, they're going to have other salespeople calling on them all the time. They'll come and they'll offer to renew their contract to stay with them. But for the vast majority of consumers out there, they never come back around and tell them, hey, your contract has expired. It's time to look at rates now and lock in again. Because when you're locking in a fixed rate, again, the only way to guarantee the price per kilowatt hour or the price per therm for natural gas is if the company goes out and buys a year's worth of gas or electricity right now. And in order to do that, they have to pull money out of their pocket to go out into the commodities markets, and they buy 12 months worth, and that way they can lock in that price. So, when their contract expires, when that 12 months comes around, what's the incentive for them to go back to that same client and pull another 12 months of revenue out of their pocket to go buy energy for that company? As a matter of fact, the whole system is designed in such a way, the incentive for the energy suppliers to let them be out of contract because they'll end up on a default rate. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories of companies that have been out of contract. They haven't managed this well, and most of them don't know when their contracts expire, if they're under contract or not. They just don't keep up with that, and they end up paying for it dearly. We've got lots of stories of people paying 50% more than they should, 100% more. Our most outrageous story is a small municipality, part of the Philadelphia metro area. They're just south of Philadelphia. Small municipality that had a gentleman on staff that was taking care of energy procurement. Every year their contract came up for renewal, he'd go get 3 prices. The city council would pick which one they wanted, then they'd enter a contract, and it'd be good for a year, and then they'd do it over and over again like that. Well, this guy, he got older. He passed, and after his death, when they were passing around his job duties in the office, no one thought of energy procurement. And, of course, the electric bill kept coming in, and they just sent it over to the accounting office. Somebody wrote the check and sent it out. But nobody was even thinking about it. And they were out of contract for 4 years by the time we came. We went through our energy procurement process, found best pricing for them. And what they discovered, what we discovered along with them, is that they were paying 32 cents and 36 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm not talking about natural gas now. This is for electricity. And the best price we found for them was 7.6 cents. It was over a 400% more that they were paying than they should have. I've got the article because this little town, the local newspaper writes an article every week after the city council meets, and they report the business of the city council. And they stated in the newspaper that we had saved them over $9,000 a month, which was enough to hire 2 or pay the salaries of 2 employees. So they were making a huge mistake by simply not keeping up with it. And that's one of the things the Direct Connect portal will do, is that once they're in our system, 90 days before their contract expires, we'll come back around, we'll notify them, and start the process all over again, promising to our clients that we'll keep them in best energy prices on and on, year after year, without fail. The nice thing about that for you guys, the sales guys, is when the client realize what we do and they can't keep up with it for themselves, or they do a substandard job of energy procurement, they're happy to have somebody do an exceptional job of it. And what it means is that you create an income that's ongoing year after year, 6, 7, 10, 20 years from now. The truth of the matter is 50 years from now, people are still going to be using electricity and natural gas. if you're around, Avion Energy will be. You'll still be getting paid on the clients that you put on your book of business this next month. So you stack your income, you keep adding more and more. You'll grow a very substantial book of business and enjoy a lifestyle that's exceptional. Rick, I'll turn it back to you.
I appreciate that, and I learn something every time on these calls. To think that the average, the length of time that the average customer would stay on the books is pretty extraordinary to me. And I think we certainly perform above and beyond the average, and I would have an even higher expectation of how long we'd keep a customer too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If they stay in business, we're pretty much going to keep them, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. They stick around for 7 years simply because they're not doing a very good job of energy procurement with somebody that's taking advantage of them. With us, we're doing a great job for them that they can't get done anywhere else. So it's just a huge, win-win-win all the way around. Yeah.
I know personally, I've put stuff on the books here, several years ago, and might have even forgot I had the conversation, but it's still there. So it's pretty exciting, to have an opportunity like that. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're crazy busy this week, and you are a lot of weeks, and I think we appreciate all the effort you put in and the foresight to create something that allows for the scaling, that allows everybody on this call and future generations of these people to take advantage of that, with BidPoint. So I want to thank you again for being on the call, and thank everybody else. And let's have an awesome week, and we'll be teeing it up again Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and then next Thursday, one of our Avion Energy brokers on the inside is going to be on the call. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Jim. Don Scribala, did I say that right?
Don Shabilia.
Shabilia, there you go. All right, I'll make sure I have that right from now on. So Don will be our special guest next week talking about some of the process. So thank you again. Thank everybody, and let's go have a productive rest of our week.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.